Hey guys, welcome back to the Vertical Momentum. I'm Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this episode is going to be so special for me because we're going to be talking about things that I love. We're going to be talking about resiliency. We're going to be talking about the art of the comeback. And this young lady I'm going to have on the show, Grace, is she's the perfect person for this show. Went from homeless to millions. She is the Swiss Army knife of resiliency, and I had to write all this stuff down. Normally, I remember, but I had to write it all down. She's a best-selling author, entrepreneur. She has just changed the game of business and in life, and she is also one of the most inspiring people I know. I don't even know if I can walk up my cliff in my town. She's climbed some of the biggest mountains in the world. And we're going to talk about resiliency, how business can be like climbing a mountains. And Grace, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your amazing husband, Marcus. Big shout out. I can't wait to have him on the show. Sam Rivera, thank you for putting us together. And guys, if you stay till the end, I'm going to give you an opportunity to invest $30 and make over $1,000 in ROI for $30. I'll talk about that at the end. So, Grace, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Richard, I'm doing great. I'm on top of the world. So, love to be here and looking forward to sharing with your audience and talking to you.
All right. So, before we even get started, because people might see you and your amazing husband and your amazing life, your business, but it hasn't been all sunshine, rainbows, sprinkles, and unicorns. So what is your definition of resiliency?
Sure. So before we begin, there's a Nigerian proverb that I love, and it says, wherever the stream flows, it never forgets its source. And my source is my grandmother, my late grandmother, who lived until she was 83. She passed in 2001, but she raised 9 children. She had 9 biological children. And in spite of her limited resources, she and my granddad had room in their hearts to adopt 5 young sisters who lost their moms. So she raised 14 children. As a result, I'm one of 52 grandchildren, 52. But as we are talking in this intimate setting, I can assure you that I was her favorite. I knew I was her favorite because she would say to me, you have blessed my eyesight and you have lengthened my years. But her most treasured words to me were, believe beyond your limits. So as we think of resiliency and my definition of resiliency, a lot of it came from what was implanted within me from my grandmother. And resiliency is moving to your next. Although you've got an enormous setbacks, you focus on your next step. It's going from one setback to the next, and still have the ability and the resources within and without you to take that next step. And I think our riches is in the next step we'll take. And I'm just here to encourage your audience that make your next step the very best step.
Okay, so now before we even got on, we started talking about what's important to both of us, and it's legacy. And you're talking about your grandma. Maybe she didn't have the currency, but she still left a huge legacy. And something that Gary Vaynerchuk taught me when we had lunch one time, he said, Rich, your legacy is way more valuable than your currency. So, and I love that. So, take us in the Wayback Machine. Tell us a little bit about where you come from, where'd you grow up, and how did you become the force that you are today?
Sure. I was born in a very small country of Guyana. It's the size of Rhode Island. It has 250,000 people, or 750,000 people. And, so I grew up in a very small town. and because I had a big family, I had the benefit of being surrounded by love. So although resources were limited, as a child, you could not tell me that I was not rich. I was rich in love. I was rich in attention and values that were instilled in me. And those values really became my currency. So at the age of 14, my family, and I'm second oldest of seven. So a family of nine moved from that small country to Brooklyn, New York. And I began my journey here in the United States.
And as you see, I'm writing stuff down because I have a traumatic brain injury, but I
Yes.
also don't want to miss anything. So you got to tell me, because I'm from New Jersey. We're always in Brooklyn. I try to go to as many Nets games as I can. But what was it like coming from Guyana to Brooklyn, New York? I'm sure that had to be a culture shock.
That's an understatement. I might as well have gone to a different planet. Everything was different. Friends, different schooling. I mean, and to be 14 in the middle of your teen years when community and being part of a group and affiliation was so important, to move at that time and to come and really learn how to survive in a high school that was not in the greatest neighborhood. I mean, it really taught me resiliency. It really taught me thinking on the spot, understanding, reading the room, reading the community very quickly, and adapting in a way that I can not only survive, but I can thrive. So what's interesting is I went to Tilden High School, which is the same high school that both Larry King and Al Sharpton graduated from. When I entered that high school, the guidance counselor gave me an aptitude test. It seems like I spent the entire day, Richard, just, completing this test. At the end of the test, she said to me, look, based on your results, you're going to be in the 10th grade, which is what I knew I wanted. At 14, you're in the 10th grade. And she said, I recommend that you major in one of two things, either accounting or Spanish. So I was puzzled by both because Guyana is an English-speaking country, and so I knew some Spanish, but I was more intrigued with accounting, and I always gravitated to the unknown, the road less traveled. I'm just very interested in learning. I always had a vast capacity for intellectual curiosity. So I said, you know what, I'll do accounting. And not knowing what that entails, I thought it would be being a teller at the bank at my limited mindset at the time. And I did accounting. And Richard, it was my accounting classes were as easy as breathing. I mean, I just love accounting, and quickly was able to excel academically at my high school. And from there, it just set me in a path to be a CPA and continue my journey as a finance expert working on Wall Street. But yes, so that was my journey, and that's what that was like.
Okay, so I am a man. I'm not very well book educated. I'm a ninth grade dropout, but I've read over 6,000 books. I'm a three-time top-selling author, and I love history. And if people look back into Guyana, it wasn't a very rich country financially, but there was a lot of people they talk about matriarchs, patriarchs, and then of course the Guyana tragedy. So it's amazing when I talk to a person like yourself. You've come from that, and if somebody would ever believe that you went to the Wharton School of Business, coming from such humble beginnings, just that alone would blows my mind because I have a lot of people I've interviewed that went to Wharton, and I think it's one of the greatest schools in history. So
It is.
talk to us about coming from a humble beginning and then going to the Wharton School of Business, which I'm truly and amazed just by that.
Okay, well, the lesson of all this is dream big. Okay, we've got success in our birthright. And when you plan your dreams, it should never be based on your circumstances. It's what I took from my grandmother telling me, believe beyond your limits. It means believe beyond your circumstances, that the realization of your dream and finding out the level of resistance and grit that you have is all beyond your comfort zone, your limits, and any stereotypical box that you or society can place you in. What's amazing about me going to Wharton is the opportunity to really know that everything in my life prepared me for that school. Everything. All of the humble beginnings, the fact that I overcame homelessness, the fact that I excelled academically, the fact that I could go into an international environment and understand how it is to really communicate with ease with many cultures at the same time really prepared me well to be part of this elite academic institution. And right now, I'm a proud board member at the Wharton School.
Okay, so let's talk because you told me, excuse me, that you read my book, and I was homeless for 18 months. All my fault, nobody else's fault. And I was talking to somebody, I was interviewed last night, and somebody asked me, how do you always keep it fresh from being homeless? And I tell people, when I go out for dinner now, even if I don't want it, I order the lobster tail and the filet mignon because it reminds me 35 years ago, I was homeless, living in a crack house, eating dog food and eating out of a garbage can. So for me, I keep it fresh in my mind and I'm grateful that God took me from there to where I am now. So talk about being homeless because a lot of people, don't even realize people like me and you, we didn't have a roof over our head. We were struggling. So talk about your struggles.
Sure. And I'll just give you some background. So I never forgot the day when my uncle picked us up from the airport with one of those station wagons, and we from JFK, we were driving from there to Brooklyn. And as we were driving, my mom looked up and saw some housing projects. And Richard, do you know what she said to him? She said, Keith, her brother's name. She said, Keith, are those jails? And he looked at her and said, no. Well, my mom looked up and she said, well, there are bars in every window. They're tiny units cramped up together. And they look like jails to me. And he said, no. Those people live there. And she said, people live there? And he said, yes, people live there. So remember that, because when mom and I went to church or we were communicating with various people, they would ask her, what does she do? And she was a housewife up to that point. My dad was a government trained geologist and he had to be retrained in the United States. And they looked at all of us and they were like, how are they going to make it? And so I heard a number of individuals go up to my mom and say to her, look, the best advice I would give you for a woman with 7 children is to go on welfare. You will have one of the biggest apartments. The government will give you one of the biggest apartments. Your food will be taken care of. And I'll never forget my mom's response. She would look at them and say, and take my family to live in those jails? No way. So she was determined that we were not going to go on welfare, that she was going to be retrained. She entered college for the first time. She did her GED and then entered college. My dad too was, started working 1, sometimes 2 jobs to make ends meet. And they were, of course, we lived at my uncle initially, and then they were looking for an apartment. And my uncle told my mom, look, when you go to landlords, don't tell them you have 7 kids. Just, because no one's going to rent an apartment with 7 kids. And she said, and I'm bringing up this story to tell you that although I had humble beginnings, I had a lot of great values instilled in me, not just what my parents told me, but how they lived their lives. So she said to my uncle, there's no way I'm going to lie. So she went all over Brooklyn telling landlords, and she told me they would literally hand her the keys and say to her, and by the way, how many children did you say you have? And she said, oh, I have 7. And they're like, are you kidding me? And they would take the keys back. So finally, she found this beautiful apartment brownstone. The owners who lived upstairs, once they heard she had 7 kids, said, sorry, we can't rent you the place. And it just so happened the next day she was walking by the brownstone, and they literally came out of the brownstone, went after her and said, are you the lady who are looking for an apartment? She said, yes. And they said to her, you can have it. And they give her the keys. So that's an interesting backdrop to how I ended up in a homeless shelter, because here we were in that brownstone. We lived there through most of my high school years, and I went on to Pace University in New York, and I was a commuting student and living in the brownstone. I was between my 2nd and 3rd year, and on June 5th, it was a beautiful summer day. Around 4 p.m., I got home from summer school, and I think I was a block away, and I knew something was seriously wrong. All I saw was smokes, a lot of smoke, the fire trucks, great deal of commotion. As I got closer to the apartment, windows are broken, black as inside, as you can see. And interestingly, amidst all the chaos and the running and the screaming, I met my mom standing there very calmly with most of my siblings at her side. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And she said, just calmly, can't you see? We had a fire. And she explained to me that the fire moved rapidly throughout the apartment. And all she had time to do was to grab the kids that were in there and took her outside. So it got a bit more interesting, because as the night wore on, the Red Cross came, Salvation Army came, friends and family came, and they all had the same advice, which is, hey, your family of 9, why don't you split up into 2s and 3s, go to family and friends until you get your life together, and then come back as one. And my late dad, he was standing there, and he always told us that the saddest day of his life was when he was orphaned at 8 and was separated from his 2 brothers. And he said, there is no way we're going to be separated as a family. And the only place we can go and be together as a family unit of 9 was a New York City homeless shelter. So I found myself having collected all the memories I could get from the apartment, which, by the way, fit in a 13-gallon trash bag with room left to spare. Me, my trash bag, 6 siblings, mom and dad, entered into a homeless shelter. And that became our place of abode for the next 7 to 8 months.
Okay, now, and I wrote this down, and I've marked it 3 times now, because I lost my vision about 6 years ago. I lost 80% of my vision. Then my hearing got better, not according to my wife, but my hearing got better. So I'm able to listen to the things that you say in certain words. And I marked down 3 times that you've had people believe in you. One was grandma. One was your guidance counselor that I think without their guidance, you wouldn't be where you're at today. And then there's your mom and dad that believed in the family unit.
Mhm.
They believed in each other, and they believed in you kids. So, a lot of people don't have somebody to believe in them. And I think that's something that I do is I believe in people more than sometimes than they believe in them. So can you
Mhm.
talk about that and how important it is to have somebody believe in you and how important it is to believe and pour into other people?
Oh, that is such a great point. I mean, I think of my grandmother and the confidence in which she told me I would be successful, the confidence in which she showered me with praise in a way that when she spoke to me, there were times I looked around because I was thinking, well, she couldn't be talking to me about me, because she just had a knowing that I would do great things in life. She just knew it. And yes, you're right. She believed in me much more than I believed in myself. And I also saw that with teachers, I saw that with counselors, with even some of my great friends who would look at me and say, you should never settle for X, Y, and Z because so much greater is coming to you. And this is why I can speak to high school students. I can pour into them so much because our capacity and our purpose is way beyond us. And sometimes the magnitude of the impact we have in the world is something that even our imagination can't fathom at the time based on where we are in the growth process. And it takes a while. It takes lots of reinforcement. It takes the ability to take a step and to have a track record of some successes under our belts. So even when the setbacks come, we just know that within us, we've got the greatness, and the world and humanity needs us to shine. And the best way we can appear in the world is with the confidence, knowing that everything that's been implanted in us has the ability to come forward, and our giftings and our highest purpose can be manifested in a meaningful way.
And I love that. And something that I tell all my friends and my students that a setback is just a setup for God to show out in your life. So, wherever you're at, He's going to meet you there and He's going to get you through whatever you're going through. So, if somebody's listening to us, they might be in a homeless shelter right now. They might be in high school trying to figure out, well, what's my next move? Because a lot of people, they can't see 3, 5 moves ahead. And that's why I just finished Patrick Bet-David's new book, planning talking about five steps ahead. So what would you say to somebody that's maybe in a homeless shelter right now, maybe struggling financially, mentally, spiritually? What would you say to them about hope for their future?
Okay. I'm here to encourage everyone who is struggling financially or spiritually, emotionally, in a place where you find yourself, where you know that there is much more in store for you, but yet you're frustrated that you are where you are. I'm here to tell you that now is the time to get up, rise up, show up. Now is the time to invest in yourself. Now is the time to really look and see what the future can hold, that it is exceedingly abundantly beyond everything you can think of and dream of. And I've come from places where there were times I was so depressed. When I was 16, I thought, well, maybe, I had suicidal thoughts, because one of the things that really kept those thoughts coming was that I would look at my current circumstances and think, this is always going to be, it will always be like this. Or, I see myself in the future and my current circumstances are magnified. I'm here to tell you that your future will be drastically different than your past. As a matter of fact, your past, your present does not define your future, and that we are co-creators in our destiny. And the day we believe in ourselves, the day we understand all the gifts that are implanted in us, the day we take that amazing next step, and even if we have to take it as a leap of faith, but move forward, it's the day we move closer to our destiny.
And I love that. And I say that all the time. Your past does not dictate your future. And to see where I'm at now from where I've come from, but it's all because of him. I always give him all the glory and the honor. But your story reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time was The Pursuit of Happiness. And I'm sure that your mom and dad, they weren't just sitting in the shelter saying, "Oh, woe is me." I'm sure that your mom and dad were like, "All right, can I tell everybody failure is not a person. Failure is an event." And I'm sure your mom and dad were like, "We may be here now. We're moving on up, like the Jeffersons. We're moving on up." So talk about having that mentality that even if you're in a bad situation, your mind can get you out of it. Like my favorite movie of all time, being an old white guy, my favorite movie of all time is the autobiography of Malcolm X. And the reason it's my favorite movie, because my favorite quote was when he was Red, his name was Red in prison, and he asked him, "Why are you so happy?" He said, "Because my body may be in jail, but my mind is free." And I think it's so important that no matter the situation you're in now, like you're saying, in 5 years, 5 months, 5 days, 5 weeks, if your mind is right, you're going to get out of that situation. So talk about how important mindset is to getting you to where you want to go.
Look, mindset is everything. I've learned this in the homeless shelter. I learned this when I'm climbing mountains. I've climbed over 25 mountain peaks on 3 continents. I've learned this when I'm ascending in the corporate boardroom. It is everything. And while we were in the homeless shelter, we all had a plan. We were going to school during the day. My parents worked. We all had a plan of meeting in certain areas at certain times, so none of us are by ourselves, and we collaborated in an amazing way in order to survive. But we knew that was temporary. And one of the things you can really enhance your mindset is if you find yourself in a position that is depressing and a position that you don't like, always remind yourself that this is temporary. This is a stepping stone. Have a plan to move forward and take the step to move forward. I remember many times in the mountains when, we're climbing and it gets, you get to a point where your body is so spent. You've given it all you've got physically. This is where the mindset makes a difference. And what you tell yourself at that time will make the difference between life or death. Literally, I have seen Olympic athletes, I've seen people fitter than me either come back, turn around because they couldn't complete the mountain, or die on the mountain because their mindset was, "Oh, this is terrible. It's never going to get any better." And they couldn't bring themselves to take the next step forward. And standing there still and telling themselves all the negativity left them paralyzed with fear. And that really hurt their ability to move forward.
Okay, so you mentioned it, so we're going to go there. I was talking to somebody yesterday. Right now, they're in a government facility, and I was talking about gratitude, and they looked at me like I lost my mind. They're like grateful, and I'm like, my dad came from Italy, off the boat, didn't speak the language, but something he taught me. He said, "The man with no shoes can't complain to the man with no feet."
Yes.
So for me, I told this person, I said, there's people out there that are hungry. There's people out there that are living on the streets. There's people out there that don't have clean clothes, anything like that. So even though you're not where you want to be grateful for what you have now. Like, I know that my father owns everything. He
Yes.
just lets me borrow stuff. So when I clean my house every day, I clean my kitchen, and I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you for my beautiful home. Thank you for my beautiful children, my bride. Thank you for the house I have now, but thank you for the beach house that's coming. Thank you for the boat that's coming. Thank you for the new truck that's coming. Thank you for letting me borrow everything, knowing I don't own it. But I'm grateful for what I have now. And I believe that God, or the universe, whatever you call him, he's like a parent. If your kids show you appreciation and they show you gratitude, you want to give them more. But if you got a little bratty kid and they just want more and don't appreciate what you have, you're not going to give it to them. So talk about gratitude and how important gratitude is to your future.
Oh my goodness. I think there's a saying that if the only prayer we have is thank you, that is enough. And I think back to when I was going through my divorce, and it was not good. It was terrible. I mean, you can look at the circumstances at the time, and it's like, oh my goodness, I of all persons should not have been in this position, just given all the effort I had put into making that a success. But at the time, it ended, and the death threats came, and the level of chaos and abuse was around me. And Richard, I had a birthday coming up, and I wanted to celebrate my birthday, and I wanted to take the time to celebrate it. And I was thinking, what can I do to really make this special and just transcend me and my guests from everything that was taking place. And I decided to call my birthday a gratitude ball. I invited 75 guests. It was called a gratitude ball. And each guest had their name was calligraphied, but I had a gratitude note of how each and every one of them, what they meant to me, what their friendship was like, how they instilled a nugget of wisdom in me that's still there, and why I'm grateful for their presence. And I have to tell you, I had a screen showing all the gratitude quotes that I had collected over the years. And one quote was, praise the bridge that got you over. Praise the bridge that got you over. And I love that quote. And that ball, with everyone coming in, reading their gratitude notes, the entire room was just transformed to one of the most blissful nights of my life. I think we felt as guests that we were floating on air. That's what gratitude brought. I know that forever I will be grateful for the very breath of life that I woke up with. I'll be grateful for the lessons that I learned along the way. I'm grateful for even my trials, because they've taught me to appreciate healthy relationships. Bad relationships, toxic relationships will help you learn what healthy relationship and meaningful love looks like. And every time you're in a situation that teaches you a lesson, it's a gift. And that is the gift that you can take on and move on to your next step. So I am so grateful because I have opportunities now in my life. I am sitting in places now in my life that my ancestors only could have dreamt about. And quite frankly, some of what I've achieved exceeded my ancestors' dream. And so I wake up every single day with a heart of outpouring of gratitude.
Okay, and now, I'm being. This is the first I'm ever going to talk about this on the show. But yesterday, I'm going through everything that you're doing, and then my next guest, Mr. Faisal Hoke, he's coming on the show, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm a ninth grade dropout. I'm
Wow.
I'm somebody that shouldn't be even talking to you, talking to Mr. Hoke. I shouldn't be doing this, but God has put me where He wants me to be. And I think a lot of it has to do with, because you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned self-talk. You've talked about manifestation, and that's where we're going next. But guys, I want to give you a hack that's totally changed my life. Before I go to bed at night, I wrap my arms around my wife and I pray for her. I pray for her happiness, her health. I pray for her that she knows that I love her forever. And then I think about three things that happened great during my day. And this interview is going to be one of them. And then I just give thanks for my day. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I could see something, because I went blind 6 years ago, I sit up in my bed and I say, thank you, Lord. Thank you for the trials that are coming. And thank you for the gifts that are coming. So before my feet hit the ground, I'm in gratitude. So guys, if you wake up with gratitude and you go to bed with gratitude, your life is going to be so much better. But I also want to talk about self-talk and manifestation, because I believe we would never talk to people the way we talk to ourselves. And for me, I read a book called From Homeless to Billionaire, and he talked about every day you should say 5 or 6 things to yourself every day, 20, 30 times a day. And my self-talk is, if I hear anything negative, I'm like, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm disease-free, I'm whole, and I'm helping millions of people, all because of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So if I hear any negatives, I start popping my self-talk. So I don't want to hear, there's no negative in me. And I believe that whatever because I had a conversation with Tony Robbins, and I got really deep into mindset. And I went back and started listening to stuff from the authors of Napoleon Hill, and then back even further. And they say that your obsessions become your possessions. So whatever you think about, you become. So that's manifestation. It's not woo-woo, guys.
It is.
And Grace is going to be talking about how that is not woo-woo. It actually really works. So talk about self-talk and manifestation.
Sure. So in the beginning was the word, okay? And it was the word that was manifested. I'm going to tell you, your words shape your life. Your words will move you from where you are to your next, whether it's being ascending or descending. It is based on your words. When you speak it into the atmosphere, there is so much power in the tongue that we have to guard it. We have to be conscious of it, and we have to make sure that it is consistent and it aligns with our goals, values, and aspirations. So yes, self-talk is the key to your success. Self-talk is the key to my success. And regardless of where you are in life, you will still be hampered with negative self-talk. It will never leave you. However, we have the ability to counter that with much more powerful words and affirmations. At the end of every chapter in my book are words of affirmations, every chapter, because it's so important for us to be mindful and conscious of what we tell ourselves, because our mindset will lead us to our footsteps. And because our mindset is so much more important than our footsteps, we have to make sure that we really guard our mindset with a certain passion than ever before.
Wait, can you just repeat that about the mindset and the footsteps? That just blew my mind.
So I learned this climbing mountains, okay? So you're climbing and you get to a point where you're facing the storms, you're facing darkness, you're facing the wind that's howling around you. And you're just warped in this zone where you're like, am I going to live or die? Okay, this is like do or die for me here. And what you tell yourself will dictate your footsteps. It doesn't matter how strong your footsteps are at that point. If your mindset isn't aligned with the ascent of your goals, you're never going to make it. And this is why I'm very careful in the mountain what I tell myself, but also careful here on sea level what I tell myself, because I know that when I tell my mind I'm a masterpiece, I'm a divinely created masterpiece in the world, that I am worthy and I have value in every place that I go, that my voice and my wisdom are changing lives and changing rooms that I enter into, that dictates how I appear in the world. That dictates when I speak, my ability to really communicate and share exactly what can really change and direct strategic visions of companies is critically important to me. So I believe it's so important, self-talk, being aware of your mindset. One of the, you mentioned many authors that I love, like Napoleon Hill and Tony Robbins, but I've read all of Norman Vincent Peale's book because of this.
The power of positive
thinking. I mean, you talk about dog earing it, highlighting it, different colors, speaking it to myself over and over and over again. I do think if we look at where we are look at geopolitical risk, macroeconomic environments, you look at potential for, pandemics and all kinds of stresses and crimes, the world is going to get more stressful. And those that are equipped and prepared and ready to really soldier on in that kind of environment are those that are going to not only survive, but thrive.
I love that. But now, people think I'm crazy, and my wife thinks I'm crazy. And I tell everybody, I'm God's favorite. I'm the apple of God's eye, and I am highly favored. So whatever room I walk into, when I go into a parking lot, I expect the best parking spot. When I go in to buy something, I'm like, yeah, I'm highly favored. So I'm going to get the best sales. So even being in the presence of somebody like Joel Osteen, when you start realizing that what you think about yourself is what the world's going to start thinking about you. And if you expect to be highly favored, you will be highly favored. Yes. It's your aura. It's the way you walk. Like when I walk into a room, I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room because I know what I know. I don't know what they know. But when I walk into a room, I want people to know that's somebody. He's different. He's somebody. He's highly favored. So talk about that. When you walk into a room, you already know that you're highly favored. You don't have to say anything because there's an aura about you. So talk about that.
Yes. Okay. So important. I remember in 2015, I was appointed as the first woman and the first African-American to sit on the board of a financial services company with 13 white males. Their average age at the time was, I'd say, early 70s, all of them. And I had gone through an intensive interviewing process. But I have to say, when I was offered the opportunity to interview for that board, I looked at the back of the annual report and I saw the the board, the current makeup of the board, and I started questioning why are they, why isn't this board more diverse? Why are they interviewing me now? And I am so glad to this day that I showed up at the interview, because I ended up having some great intellectual discussions with them. The camaraderie of the room was great. And at the end of my interview, they said to me, "What do we have to do for you to accept the position?" And I said, number one, I'd like to see more of your operations. And number two, I'd like to know that you have a commitment, a serious commitment to attract the best talent for this company. And many times the best talent for a company don't always look alike. And that you're open to different voices and the highest level of diversity, which is diversity of thought. And they said they were open. And I took that position, and I walked into that boardroom with a level of confidence because, number one, I was already an expert in the market of insurance. Number two, I was an expert in mergers and acquisitions, and the company was acquiring, acquisitions was one of their strategic directions. And number three, I'm very pleasant and easy to talk to, and had lots of experiences to share and learn from. So, the confidence was there. And I always tell, especially women, when you get a seat at the table, you're not there by accident. You're there because you have a skill set that needed to be at the table. And three, it is critically important that we have a level of courage to use our voice to make sure that thoughts are being heard, that our insights are being taken seriously, and that we are there to make a difference. Look, we are not here by accident. We are change agents in the world, right? We are by nature, our lives never fit any molds. If you look at the history of where we come from and where we are today, it is a path that does not fit any mold possible. By nature, we are disruptors. We're disrupting poverty mindset. We're disrupting what it means to be successful in the world. We're disrupting what it means to have a mindset that doesn't matter what, there's no excuse, I'm going to succeed. And that success is my birthright. It's my God-given birthright to walk in this world with the confidence, the courage, and the comfort that I am going to be successful in everything I put my hands to.
That's something that I love. And like I said, I love my Bible. I read it as much as I can. And I take things out of there. And like for me, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit. But then it also talks about how, God wants you to live your life more abundantly. And it seems, well, you're a Christian. You're supposed to be poor, and you're supposed to be downtrodden and depressed. And I'm like, listen, if my cup is empty, I can't pour into anybody else. So I got to make sure my cup is overflowing so I can pour into others. But something, as you were talking, something that really hit me is when God chooses you, it doesn't matter what your circumstances are, because even Aaron and Moses, Aaron was the public speaker. Moses had a speech impediment, and God said, Aaron, can you step aside? I got a job for Moses. So when God calls you, listen to this, guys. When God calls you, it doesn't matter who doesn't want you. He's going to put you where you're needed. So, and I know you totally believe in that, right?
Absolutely. Not only I believe it, that I'm a living proof of it. I'm a living proof that, someone might see the circumstances in which you were born, and you may not even have been born with running water, But that doesn't mean that you will not one day be living in a palace and experiencing the riches and wealth and all the conveniences of life.
But now sometimes, we can hit success and then we can lose success and then we can go back up again and we go back down and back up, just like Joseph, in the Bible. I mean, he went ups and downs and ups and downs. But I think once you realize, okay, I've had it all and I've lost it all, you can learn to get it back again because you already know what it takes to be successful. And I think in business, we'll talk about business for the last couple minutes, last 15, 20 minutes. In business, you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to say, okay, I've succeeded here. This is the reason why I failed here. But because I failed, I'm going to fail forward and I'm going to succeed even more. So talk about being able to pivot in business.
Absolutely. So going back to, you experience up and down, very similar to mountain climbing. Life isn't linear. And many times our linear minds, we're so used to a smooth ascension up. That's what we would like. But all of our learnings, it's with the curves, it's with the detours. All of our learnings happened when, wow, we had all these plans laid out, but things did not go according to plans. So whenever you have a rapidly changing landscape, like mountain climbing, you have to learn the power of the pivot. And the power of the pivot will happen while you're taking your next step. You just have to learn that your next step may not be where you had planned your next step to be. It may be in a different position because you have to pivot. So let's talk about business. I don't think the rate of change has ever been experienced like the change we have now. Everything from technology innovation to AI to geopolitical risk that just seems to be heating up rapidly, to macroeconomic environments where inflation is an issue and rates are increasing and the cost of business is increasing. Then the world has yet to recover from the pandemic, and it has made some permanent shifts in the way we work, permanent shifts in our supply chain in business, and also permanent shift in the cost of inventory and the cost of getting goods and services done. So businesses all have to reimagine how they do business, and they have to reimagine it on a daily basis and in every aspect of the business. So businesses that are stuck in doing business the way it was in pre-pandemic or the way it was even last year are businesses that are going to fail. So we're going to experience more business failures than ever before because they could not pivot rapidly. The good news is that we have ushered in what I call an age of abundance. Abundance because we have a technology that is changing so rapidly, and businesses that are growing from that there's going to be more wealth created in this age than ever before. And I always tell my audience and those who read the book Homeless to Millionaire that you are in a position to pivot in a way where you adapt your learning to make sure that your skill sets is at a place where you can co-pilot with AI and really transform the way you do business. But you wouldn't be able to do it unless you have the mindset of intellectual curiosity. You have the mindset of saying, what can I learn from all of this? How can I experiment, see what works, and re-experiment and keep re-experimenting and take the risk? It is worth taking the risk. But by all means, just don't stand still. Just don't wait for things to happen. We are the co-creators of our destiny. And the way we do it is by taking meaningful, intentional, active steps to make sure that we can pivot, we can learn and relearn to really keep pace of technology.
All right. So, but also for me, do you think that the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, you think his kids are worrying about, man, am I going to have $1 for lunch today? No, because he knows that his father, their father is rich. Now I realize that my father owns it all. So if
Yes.
he owns it all, it's my birthright. I own it all. So no matter what the economy is, who the president is, I know who sits on the throne. So there's no way I can be broke. There's no way I can be poor. So that's another mindset. But I wanted to talk about uh, mentorship and how important it is in business or in mountain climbing. Because, like for me, my teacher and my mentor is Mr. John Lee Dumas, the number one entrepreneur podcaster in the world. And so when I started my podcast, I always looked at who's crushing it, what are they doing that I'm not, and how can I incorporate it into my business? But I
Mhm.
also watch the people that are failing and saying, well, what are they doing? Let me not incorporate that into my business. So I'm sure that you've watched people that have, when you first started and got interested in mountain climbing, you first started like, okay, well, who made it to the top? Why did they make it? And then who didn't make it? And why didn't they make it? So talk about the dichotomy of business and mountain climbing and finding mentors.
Sure. So mentors, as you had mentioned in your book, no one is an island. We need mentors. We need the support of people around us, and we need people who are smarter than ourselves, people who have been in similar journeys to really impart in us some advice to take the next step and understand where to go. So mentorship is so important. I would not be here without my mentors. And I call my mentors my personal and professional board of advisors, people who are trusted. We've developed a friendship. They've seen my path. They understand the journey and the challenges that I have, and I speak freely to them about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how they can help me navigate certain paths that I have to terrain. So it's so important for us to reach out to mentors. It's important for us to go to conferences and seminars and workshops where people are succeeding in the areas that we want to succeed, and that you're there in the room not only to learn, but you're there in the room to collaborate, you're there in the room to develop friendship, and you're there in the room to find mentors. And mentors, I believe, is a critical part of success.
Okay, so I have a question here from one of the members of the audience. His name is Michael, and he says, and I'll give my opinion and ask you for your opinion. He says, "Well, I don't have any mentors, and I can't afford to hire a coach or right now or a mentor." So what I'm going to advise Michael is Audible is $15 a month. You can get thousands and thousands of books. You can download podcasts for free because your mind doesn't know whether that when you listen to a podcast or an audio book, your mind doesn't know the difference whether that person's sitting next to you or a million miles away. So even if you don't have a mentor to physically sit next to you, subscribe, listen to people that you emulate or people that you want to be like. And after you hear them long enough, they're going to become part of your five, whether they're physically there or not. So please talk about that. And what advice would you have for Michael?
So my advice to Michael is, don't let the fact that you don't have the money or you're not in a certain level that you'd like to be to stop you from reaching out to a mentor. I've had mentees reach out to me. They were students. They were not in the place they'd like to be, but they took the courage to call me, to write me, to say, can we meet? Can I talk to you about this situation? Can I learn from your advice? And it's an honor for me to share and impart with someone, especially when I see it took such a level of courage for them to make that step, and that they made the step even when they were at the lowest point in their lives. I believe what you do at your lowest point in your life will dictate how you get out of it and where you end up in your life. What you do at the lowest point in your life is critically important. I call it, from climbing the mountain, the valley decisions. How we act when we're in the valley, how we act when we're in the pit, how we act when we don't feel like ourselves, but we need the courage, and we need to go deep within ourselves to take that resource to say, you know what, today I'm going to make that call. Today I'm going to reach out, even though I'm going way beyond my comfort zone in order to do that, because the benefit of reaching out, the benefit of the communication from a mentor, the benefit of the wisdom I can get is far exceeds how I feel and the discomfort that's occurring as I'm doing it. So I just want to encourage you, Michael, not to let your current circumstances defer you from reaching out to a mentor.
One more question, if you don't mind. One of my followers, her name is Deanna. She's actually leaving the military within 6 months, and she wanted to know, because you are a military spouse, you know, and you got an amazing husband, Marcus. What would be your top 3 pieces of advice for somebody that's about to get out of the military and get into the corporate world or entrepreneurship?
Sure. One, know that your skill sets are in demand. There are companies that I'm aware of, financial services companies specifically, that are looking for military spouses, military vets to work in that company. There is a level of discipline that you have that far exceeds the guy or girl in the street. So I do think you should have some confidence in the skill sets that you're bringing. I think secondly is have a clear vision of where you want your life to be, whether it's going to be working for a corporation or starting an entrepreneurial venture. Have that vision and pursue it with passion. We're in an age, particularly for women, where more women are starting businesses than ever before. And I myself, I started my own company 16 years ago. It takes a level of courage to take that step. But if you're betting on yourself and you're taking that risk, I'm here to remind you that it's going to be worth it. Particularly if you're selling a product or services where you can prove the value addedness to anyone getting those services, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be impactful. And then the third is remember your legacy. Your decision is going to build your legacy. And, I want my legacy to be that I inspire, I informed, I educated people to move to their next financially, to really move to their next in their careers, and take the big risk, because it's climbing a mountain where you have to go one step at a time and take those steps carefully and just keep on moving. But please do not stop. Do not give up. Do not get so discouraged that you don't move ahead. Keep on moving. Even though the journey may not be what you entail, keep on moving.
Now, that usually is the last question, but because it's you, I got one more question. I had Simon Majumdar. He's on the show, The Next Level Chef. Tournament of Champions. He's a former Iron Chef winner. And I had him on the show, and he said, ever since COVID, over 100,000 restaurants have gone out of business. People are driving for Uber, driving for DoorDash, just trying to make a living. Mm-hmm. So we live in a very busy world. And if I ask somebody to do something in 7 days, they're never going to do it. But if we ask somebody that's listening to us to take an action in 24 hours, they're more likely to do it. So right now, if there's somebody out there struggling with their faith, what is something they can do to start finding some more peace again?
I say, if you're struggling with your faith, say to yourself, with the level of belief that you are God's best masterpiece, that when he made you, he did not make a mistake, that he put some gifts and talents and treasures in you that the world needs to hear about, that you are here to reach your maximum human potential possible, and that in your DNA, there is joy. In your DNA, there is riches, there is wealth, there is peace, there is abundance. Let's remind ourselves that stress may have come and buried what and have us forget what's inside of us. But when we come to ourselves, when we understand what we have within us, when we lift up our heads in gratitude and just thank God for the very breath and life that he put into us, and he did not make a mistake. And that if we trust him and take that next move, that we have the resources and God will give us the favor and the friendships and the mentor we need to keep going and take that step, take that next step, and make your next step the very best step.
So last question is, how do we find you? Where do we get your book, Homeless to Millionaire? How do we get in touch with you? How do we support your mission?
Absolutely. So my book, Homeless to Millionaire, is on Amazon. You can order from Amazon, and you can reach me from my website, graceglobalcapital.com. graceglobalcapital.com.
I love it. And I want to give a big shout out to Marcus. Thank you so much for your service, brother. I want to thank Sam Rivera. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. So I want to say thank you. And guys, I promise you something, that if you pick up, you're not going to be able to see it, but if you pick up my new book, it's here. You can't see it. It's called The Podcasting Blueprint, Mastering Purpose, Power, and Profit. And it's actually, the whole back cover is written by Mr. John Lee Dumas. If you buy the book for $30, you get an autographed copy, and you also get $997 in bonuses. If you just pick up the book for $30, it'll be available if you're interested. Right now, it's even available for ebook for $3. So guys, for $3, you can have your own podcast and get it from thought to profit in 8 weeks for $3. So guys, if you're serious about podcasting, make sure you pick up the book or the ebook. And guys, everything is clickable in the ebook. So one of my friends said you can actually buy the ebook today and have your podcast started by dinner. So guys, if you're interested in starting your podcast, let me know. And also, a lot of people don't like Joel Osteen. I love Joel Osteen. And something that he says, you can either be a victim or you can be a victor. And if you listen to this show, guys, you are victors of your present and your future. You're no longer a victim of your past. And I want to thank you guys for always showing up in force. Grace, I just want to say thank you. This has been amazing, and I'm so grateful. I can't wait to get to have your husband come on so me and him can chill and talk about everything that he's doing. And I believe God puts people in my life for a reason. So I'm just very grateful.
And grateful to you as well. And I just wanted one more thing to remind your audience. I have financial empowerment masterclasses, and you can get them from clicking on the link, Financial Abundance with Grace.
I can't, and I'll put that all in the liner notes. So I just want to say thank you. Have an amazing week and keep crushing it.
You too. Thank you
guys,
so much.
I love you guys. And remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have a great week. Bye, Grace.
Bye, Richard. Climb on.